Hello, and welcome back to the Writer Wizard podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about schools. Do we need them? I'm also going to be reviewing the new MUNSTERS movie made by Rob Zombie. And finally, I'll be talking to writers about punching down. But before I get started, I just want to make an apology. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes here at home. So, unfortunately, the rest of Pirate Month has to be canceled. Um, we will pick up next September with Pirate Month. And we'll probably be starting with the last two Pirates of the Caribbean movies before we move on to other pirate movies. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the episode. All right, so schools. Do we need them? Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, of course we need them. That's a silly question. Why wouldn't we need schools? Our children need to learn. And to that, I would say yes. Obviously, kids still need to learn. But the question is do we need traditional schools? Or is there a better way? We had a glimpse, a small portion given to us during 2020, let's say. I'm not sure what they'll flag you for saying these days, but ever since then, it has just been a wreck out there. Either schools are getting shot up, kids are out of control. The world is just going to hell in a handbasket. And I think with everything, including stuff I've talked about previously on this channel, there is a better way, a much more controlled way that kids could be learning. And I think the salvation is through a media the children of today are already familiar with, and that's online schooling. Now, during the pandemic, of course, there was a whole thing where kids, didn't want to do it. But it's not their choice. It's the parents' choice. So let me break this down to how this would work. Okay? And we're going to start with safety. So first off, if they were to establish this plan, which is basically your kid stays home, and this would only be concerning to middle school and high school. Children would not have to go to the actual building for middle school and high school. They would go online and they would learn online. How do I phrase this? That right there already addresses some of the biggest concerns of safety. For example, you don't have a building full of children that can potentially be a place where either another child or deranged adult can bring a gun and shoot up the school, as we hear about so often these days. You also can devote more security. Now, if you notice, I said this would only affect middle school and high school. Your elementary schools, they still would be going K through 5. Kindergarten through 5th grade will still go to the actual building for school, just like all the time. Because, at those young ages, yes, parents need a place to have their children go, but because there are so much less schooling going on, You can devote more teachers to the kindergarten range. You can provide more security to the elementary school range. So that right there already is going to make a lot of this a lot safer. What happens outside the school isn't the school's fault. And therefore, the school will save money because they don't have to worry about guns being shot off in their school or anything like that. They don't have to worry about hiring, security for those, parts of schooling like middle and high school. So, what else? Oh, the cost would also be uh, the cost would also be saving them because of the fact that you would have less teachers. In fact, by going this route, you could effectively eliminate 75% of the teachers in this country who don't even feel like they can teach their classes anyway because the kids are so out of control. I hear stories about teachers who just sit in the class and don't even bother teaching. And I actually had teachers like that when I was growing up and I was in high school. So if it was happening then, I'm sure it's still happening now. And then that teacher is just collecting a paycheck. Literally just collecting a paycheck. Is that right? Is that fair to the ones that are actually teaching kids? No, it's not. So you can eliminate 75% of the teaching. 75% of the teachers. And I mean, that's going to save the school system tons of money that can be rerouted into an online course. And I've had people, when I talked about this with others, who brought up, well, how are kids going to learn to be social? Well, that's why you still have kindergarten to fifth grade. They can make friendships through that. And then, so let's say you live in, I don't know, Orlando, Florida, and you're going to an elementary school. Well, once you move into middle school and you start doing it online, you can find your friends still online and they can have a way for the kids to socially chat with other kids. They can have a way for teachers to chat with students. Now, from student to student, if there's anything like cyberbullying going on, the students can block each other. They don't have to talk to each other. They don't have to have any social contact with people they don't want to. They can just go there to learn, and that's fine. But there are kids who may want to be social, and they may want to say, hey, tomorrow let's do our class together. Let's meet, let's go online and do this together and help each other out. That could be a thing, It, and there's so many benefits. And there would still be, social events and sports and all that stuff could still all happen, but it would be more like this. So if you're going to classes, if you're in the school system, yes, you're at home learning online. But let's say, like I said, you're in Orlando, Florida, and you're going to a high school, and you decide, hey, I want to try out for the football team, then on that actual website, they would have announcements that you would see saying, hey, we're going to be doing football tryouts, and those would actually still be held at the school. So they would actually still have to meet for the football team at the school. So that way, if children want to play sports or take up extracurricular activities, it can be monitored a lot better because you have those, everything is visible. Everything is right there. It's all seen. It's all, I mean, if a child, I mean, it's basically like this. If a child's failing, then they don't get to play football. And therefore, you just you can remove them from the football team. So, because they can actually witness those grades on a daily basis, then they can actually, say, hey, you're not passing, you're getting kicked off the team. Or, they give warnings. They can actually do a lot more and control the situation a lot better. Now, would there be incentives? Well, I've been asked, okay, Sean, well, what about families who can't afford it? What about families who don't have internet or don't have computers? Well, for those students who families can't afford internet, whose families don't have a computer, it's really quite simple. Just like there's things for school lunches, there could be a thing where you sign your child up and you get free internet. As long as your child is in school and passing with a C or better, then your family receives free internet. And your child gets a computer to use, a laptop, something to use. But that has to be turned in at the end of the year. Unless your child gets straight A's, in which case they get to keep the computer. And then next year, they could try again. And they could have like 4 computers for the whole house. Everybody could have a computer if the one child is acing every class with top grades. And that could be a reward for kids who do good. That could be a reward for kids who actually try. And it could be a reward for the parents because, trust me, I have the lowest internet there is, and it costs me $40 a month. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but as a single parent, when I only have one paycheck and I have to hope that people will check out my books and one day that my books will start selling, until that day, I'm living on one paycheck. And let me tell you, $40 is a lot. And I live in a small town, a tiny town compared to the rest of the world. So I can only imagine in other cities and stuff that the price of internet is probably a lot more. And if you go through this program, you would get the best speed, maybe not the best. Let's say there's a low, medium, high. You would probably get the medium for free. But to families who don't have internet, that medium would be like, oh, wow, this is great. This is wonderful. And it would be needed, too, for the kid to go through school. And it would provide so much for the child and the family. So let's move on to what are kids in this, ideal system going to learn? Well, of course, they're going to learn the basics. They will learn math, they'll learn science, they'll learn history, they'll learn biology, all that stuff. And they will have to pass just like a regular class. But here's the thing. with there's always been this talk, as long as I can remember, from when I was a child, that there's always been some sort of overcrowding in schools. Well, with this whole plan, one teacher for, let's say, seventh grade, one teacher can teach math. He can show up in the morning, live stream his whole lesson, and then anybody who did not make that live stream in the morning, they can go back and rewatch it all throughout the day or week or month. And those can stay up for a day, week, or month, depending on how, they want to do that. I would probably say leave it up for a month, and then at the end of the month, the child has to turn in so many assignments. Every live stream description could have a link to the test if there's a test or something. So, right there, you got one teacher teaching, let's say, math to up to 100, 200 kids. And the teacher doesn't have to worry about getting interrupted. The teacher doesn't have to worry about kids causing trouble in class. No class clown, no class bullies, no danger. They are perfectly safe inside the school building. It's just them and a camera and a chalkboard. Or, well, I guess it's a white erase board now. But still, the point is that they have no worries. They just turn it on and go. They teach their class. If your child doesn't want to learn, well, that's, sorry to say, that's on your child or you. Now, hopefully, the parents, if this was a thing, if this ended up happening, parents would step up and be like, hey, no, you need to do this. I mean, the ones who can't afford internet or computers, they're definitely going to be pushing their kid. Be like, yeah, go get it done, get it done, get it done. Are you going to have times when kids cheat? I'm sure there are. And you can take precautions as much as you want. Like big tests, SATs, MATs, whatever, they're called nowadays. You can actually have arranged days and arranged times for the children to come into the actual school, sit in the classrooms or gymnasiums, and take those big tests. In school, you could also make it to where when it's not a big test, when it's just a day-to-day operation, there could be in-school classes for the special education kids. In fact, the special education kids would be the only kids that really go to the physical building of school and if that was the case, trust me, eventually the other kids would say, no, I'd rather learn online because I don't want to be in the special ed class. And people would be ashamed to actually have to go to the school daily to learn with the special ed kids. And the special ed kids, they would not be harassed or bullied or anything by the other children. Because that's all that would be at the school as far as children go. And those teachers, they could devote more time and care to teaching these special ed kids what they need to learn. But real quick, going back to the rewards, that's another benefit to this whole thing is as an online schooling system, a mass online schooling system, you have 100 people in your class, let's say, I'm sure one of those 100 people would be willing to, if they, if you socialize with them through the online chat, I'm sure one of them would be willing to coach and guide. And if not, the teachers could have a online hour or 2 hours where they chat with the children online, like they're on camera and they're on camera with your child, or they're just online on the camera, and your child types in, or says through a mic, similar to what I'm doing right now. Um, they say, "Oh, I'm having a problem with this. How can I? How can you explain it better?" You know, and that would be instant feedback for the teacher because maybe the teacher didn't explain the problem well, or maybe the child didn't understand where the teacher was going and they just need that little help. So there could be like a whole hour the teacher could devote to helping out the children. Now, if it ever became like a big problem, then they could always, yes, have more people on standby. But this is where, like I said, you could have other kids who do get the material helping out the ones who don't get the material. And you could have, you know, sessions like hours of the time filled with where the actual kids have to live stream, like, and show off a report or read a report. You know, they learn typing skills. This would be just all around great for children because we live in a technological age, an age of technology, and they're learning technology a lot faster than, well, people from my generation who didn't grow up with it. I mean, I grew up with it, so I kind of know. But, even there's been points where technology has surpassed my ability to keep up with it. And then it's just like, well, screw it. I'm not going to learn that. you know? So this could also help out parents because they can give instant feedback. They could be, they could see what their child is doing in school. They can see what the teacher is teaching them in school. And as we know from what happened all in 2020, this has been something that has really woken parents up to what's really going on in our schools, who's teaching our children. And I think this would be very beneficial because the whole entire system could be more parental controlled. If too many parents are making complaints about a certain teacher trying to convince their child that they're wrong, they're a bad person because of the color of their skin or what's between or not between their legs, too many parents could probably get that teacher fired. And this could be a well-controlled system. So, but as far as the teachers go, it would be beneficial to them because since you would have so many less teachers, the teachers who do get to keep their jobs, the teachers who do stick around could get a bigger pay, a significant pay increase. And it'd be great for the government and the schools because they don't have as many teachers to pay. And yes, they have to set up a system. So they'll have to pay for that. They're going to spend probably millions putting this entire plan into solid action. But if they do it, they will save billions, probably by the end of the first year. Because if you think about it, every single town, just about, in this country, which there's a lot of towns in every state, in 50 states, has a school or two for middle and high. And some places have many more. Like, we have two high schools here, and we have one middle school. Well, the government gets to keep the buildings, so they have a place for people to work out of. But since you don't have as many employees, you can devote your resources to better things. More upgraded security, people, online programmers. They could probably even get sponsorships from major businesses like Google or Apple. Could, they could get sponsorships to where Apple says, yeah, hey, if you go through this system and you work with us, we will donate computers to low-income families. And we will devote, and if you pay us that this much money or something, then we'll devote security. There's so much they can do with this. And it can be free to the students. And I mean, because your parents are paying taxes, and that's paying for the schools. So I mean, it's not entirely free for the parents, but it wouldn't cost the parents more. Actually, it would probably bring the school taxes on parents down because they'd be saving so much freaking money. So that's my thoughts. That's what I'm thinking of. That would actually be beneficial to middle school and high school, and you would save so many lives. You would be protecting the children so much, and the children would have so much one-on-one care with the teachers to learn what they need to learn without the distractions and heartaches of regular school lives. It could even bring down teen suicides and pregnancies. I mean, not guaranteed, but there's a good chance without the stress of being in an actual school building, knowing that you're going to get chased by 5 bullies and beaten up in a bathroom, or beaten up in a stairwell. Without that stress, kids might be better off. And we might actually move into a world where things are getting better. But that's just my thoughts. I'm really hoping you all will comment, add to this if you can, share this, especially this part of it. This is something as a parent, I feel very strongly about because I want my daughter to grow into a world where she is going to be safe at school, where kids aren't going to shoot up the building because they're getting picked on every day. And yes, whether it's cyberbullying or regular bullying, it is a real thing that happens. And it is just sick. And this is the only way I can see that the world can fix this. And if we start this here, I guarantee it'll pass on to other countries. Now, of course, you'll still have your private schools for those parents who want to who have the money. If you want to send your child to private school so they actually go to in-school learning, fine, do that. But then you're just taking, because all the problems that we're going to avoid by doing this will just pass into the private school sector. And then you'll be paying money to send your kid to a school where they are going to get beat up, where they are going to get picked on. So, I mean, that's something to consider too. I believe that eventually this will be the norm of school anyway. I I think the world has just been waiting for someone to say, "Hey, government, don't you realize you're wasting money on nothing? You're wasting money on putting kids in danger. You're wasting money that does not need to be wasted, that could be devoted to taxes and stuff instead of raising gas prices." You know? Just a thought. So I really hope you'll put your comments down below. And maybe I'll retouch the subject if people have enough questions or concerns. Let's move on to part two. Alright, so I recently watched the new Monsters movie, written and directed by Rob Zombie. I grew up with the Addams Family movies. I had seen little snippets of the classic Munsters TV show, the black and white TV show. Uh, so I do know like who Herman Munster was. I know other movies he's been in, like Pet Cemetery, My Cousin Vinny. I do know that that actor passed away, so there was no way to get him back. But I did enjoy this movie, even though only recently have I actually started watching the whole series of the Munsters. I do see that it is a movie that's kind of a prequel to the show. I kind of am hoping that they'll maybe do a sequel or like a trilogy with this. I think it would be beneficial to do more than one because, I mean, it was pretty spot on from what I've seen of the show to say that yes, this is very close to the actual show. I did enjoy the characters, and I did enjoy um, the camera work and everything. The storyline was a little, touch and go. I mean, it was several plot lines that's already been done like a million times before. Basically, rich father's now poor, needs daughter to marry a wealthy man, and a bumbling buffoon is on his way to success and, you know, falls in love with the girl and costs the family more money and doesn't make that success, only to end up with the girl and everything in like a fairy tale happy ending. It is kind of that similar story. There are some differences. I didn't really. There was nothing I outright disliked. They didn't make. I mean, it wasn't woke, so that right there was very positive. Uh, yeah, I mean the comedy was just on par with the original as far as I could tell. I mean, I probably like this one a little bit more than the original show. So I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. I definitely think this has potential. I'd like to see it go somewhere. Like I said, there is some setup for at least one more, if not two more. Um, I'd also like to see another really good, I should say, live action Addams Family, because I think it would be freaking amazing to have the Munsters meet the Addams. I think that would be a really cool idea, but I guess we'll see. Like I said, this gets a 7 out of 10 for me. So if you haven't checked it out, I definitely would say if you're a fan of like the Addams Family or the original Monsters, this is something you'll definitely probably enjoy. So now let's move on to our last and final part of this podcast, where I'm going to be mainly talking to writers, but regular audiences can sit back and understand something that we go through or what we should or shouldn't go through as writers. And what I'm talking about here is punching down. Now, for those who don't know, punching down basically means when you take a gender or a group and you push the story where you make them look bad. And this has been happening more and more and more and more these days. I'm so sick of saying it, but it's the best example I have right off the top of my head. It's the first thing that pops into my head when I talk about anything woke, or especially with this topic. And of course, I'm referring to Ghostbusters 2016. That entire movie was punching down at the audience, at men. And that is what you should not do. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but for some reason, clearly it needs to be said because it keeps happening more and more. And then these companies are losing money. And it's like, well, if you weren't punching down at your audience or at the people who you want to be your audience, then you would make money because you would actually have more people checking this out. So what do I mean by they did that? Well, they made men, all the guys in that movie, mean, sexist, which is not the way most men are. That's like some sicko, bizarro world where either men are mean or stupid. And what's really funny is the director is a guy. Paul Feig is a man. Yeah, he's a gay man, but he's still a man, and he's punching down at men. He's letting the writers punch down at men. And this, like I said, this has just been happening a lot more. And the companies come out and they try to defend it and say, oh, well, you must be this then. No, you're just over exaggerating and punching down at groups. And it really needs to stop. So, my advice to writers, don't do that. I mean, it should go, like I said, it should go without saying, but don't do it. Because you're just going to alienate and annoy your audience. And I don't understand why you would ever want to do that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have good characters who are mean and bullies. I mean, Stephen King does it quite a bit. Almost every Stephen King book has a certain trope, has certain checkboxes. Heck, people make games out of, oh, did he put this in his book, or this in his book, or this in his book? Henry Bowers is kind of a general bully. I mean, he's an extreme bully, but there's a reason for it. Yes, you always are going to have those tropes, those bullies in the story, but Stephen King doesn't punch down to put that character in the story. He doesn't make every single person unlikable because they're men or because they're adults. So basically, should avoid that. If you want your story to be a success, if you want good quality storytelling, don't do that because people are getting tired of it. People are sick of it. So I guess that's going to wrap up and conclude this episode of the Writer Wizard podcast. I do hope you all enjoyed. I really hope that you found this not only entertaining, but something worth sharing and talking about. That is my biggest thing, is trying to get people to discuss this stuff and make those changes in the world that we really desperately need. I don't do this when I do my writing. I don't I don't make it where I'm trying to send a message with my writing. When I do my writing, I'm just trying to tell a story. I'm just trying to entertain. If I want to send a message, that's why I do these podcasts. That's why I talk about how I think and feel here in the podcast. So you understand, okay, he has good stories, but what is he saying? Well, in those, I'm not saying anything. I'm just giving an entertaining story. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do is entertain you with those books. It's here I'm trying to send a message. It's here I'm trying to be heard and get my voice out. So I hope you will share, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye.